Well, good evening and God bless all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. Such a blessing to have you to tune in. Here's what I want you to do before we get started. I want you um, text somebody, call somebody, and let them know, even on Facebook Live. Thank you, sir. On Facebook Live, I want you to share with somebody that we are now on the air. Let them know to join us as we prepare to give them what God has given us. Lately, we've been dealing with mindset. It hadn't shifted. The mindset have not shifted from my spirit just yet. And so what I want to do tonight is I'm still dealing with, I've dealt with the money mindset. I've dealt with different mindset that we have to have. But tonight, I want to talk about developing a heavenly mindset. Developing a heavenly mindset. The Bible says in Colossians 3:1, it said, if we then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. You shall appear with him in glory. Developing a heavenly mindset. Listen at this. The Bible says, since then you have been raised with Christ, set your heart on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Then he said, set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. For you die, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. So here's the question. How can we develop a heavenly mindset? Some have said it is possible to be so heavenly minded that we are no earthly good. However, when you look at the history of the church, it has been those who's been the most heavenly minded that has done the most good. I want you to listen to what Christ said. He said, from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been forcefully advancing, and forceful men lay hold of it. Listen at this. From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been forcefully advancing, and forceful men laid hold on it. The people who has advanced the kingdom of heaven has been those who has grabbed hold to it. And though on the earth they have had a heavenly mindset. Do you really believe that you can have a heavenly mindset while you're here on earth? Here's the deal, having a heavenly mindset is so very important for advancing the kingdom. Not only in our lives, but on this earth as well. It's for this reason that Satan is always attacking us. He's always attacking the believer's mind, and he's attacking us with doubt and fear. He's attacking us with worldly thoughts. He's attacking us with negativity. And what Satan really wants is to keep believers from focusing on what really matters. And what really matters is God and his kingdom. That's the reason why I'm trying to get us to see things from a different perspective. And the only way that you'll be able to see it from a different perspective is you got to have a heavenly mindset. You got to understand how God operates. Not only that, you got to understand what God desires for you to have. You can never have what God desires for you to have if you don't know how to tap into it. If you don't understand how to do what it takes to get what he requires for you to have. This is what Paul is primarily referring to when he says to the Colossians, set your heart on things above. He's primarily referring to God and his kingdom. Set your heart on things above. You know what I've discovered? I've discovered that we allow earthly things to defer us from things that God has in store for us. We've allowed things that has no value, things that cannot help you in no manner to cause you to be off focus. I want you to listen to something. In the Lord's Prayer, we are taught to be consumed with God's name being hallowed and his kingdom and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The believer's mind should be consumed with heavenly things. If we can understand what's ahead of us and what we should be ready to expect, you shouldn't wait till you get to heaven to have that kind of mindset. Here's what I tell people all the time. If you're going to come out of something, before you come out, you got to have a mindset to come out. If you're going to become something, you got to have a mindset of becoming what you desire to become. Are y'all following me? See, in the scriptures, there are tremendous blessings given to those who practice right thinking. The Bible says in Isaiah 26:3, you will keep in perfect peace whose mind is steadfast because he trusts in you. Whose mind is steadfast because he trusts in you. It's also can be translated, you will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is stayed on you. Have you ever discovered that if we can keep our minds stayed on the Lord, there's a lot of things that we would avoid? There's a lot of frustration that we can avoid, a lot of headaches, if we can keep our minds stayed on him. Here's the problem. For years, we allowed our minds to wander. And now that we've gained knowledge on how to get heavenly things, is a struggle. Because now you got to empty out the things that you took in that wasn't heavenly. to try to fill your mind with heavenly things. See, here's the difference. The person whose thoughts are consumed with God and his kingdom will have perfect peace. They have perfect peace instead of anxiety, instead of always worrying about certain stuff. When we find ourselves thinking on heavenly things, when we find ourselves operating like the kingdom desires for us to operate, or like the word has instructed us to operate, then we don't have to worry about anxiety or worry. When we find ourselves anxious or in an anxiety state or worried, we can be assured that we have lost a God-centered mindset. I was just sharing with the leaders here, and we have to get to the point where we recognize where we at as believers and as a person in general. You can only be effective when your mind is clear and focused. And what I was sharing with them is you got to recognize when you get tired. I'm not talking about quitting church, but you got to recognize when there's time to rest. You got to know when you've taken on too much. You got to know when there's time to be still. Because sometimes what happens is we operate and we are so eager to do this and eager to do that until we lose focus on who we really are. So that's why it's important that you keep a centered focus on God, or God-centered mindset. So here's the question. What are some of the benefits of God-centered thinking? What are some of the benefits? Let's listen at what the Philippians had to say. Philippians 4, 8 and 9. Listen at what he said. He said, finally, brethren, our brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about certain things. Think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, listen to what he said, put it to practice. And the God of peace will be with you. Paul says, thinking on right things and also practicing them bring the God of peace. In other words, it brings the very presence of God in our lives. A lot of us are missing the manifested presence of God in our lives because we don't have godly-centered mindset. We don't have godly-centered mindset. So we're missing the manifest presence of God in our lives because we have ungodly thinking. And when we have ungodly thinking, it eventually leads to ungodly practice. In fact, Paul says that the way a person thinks is an indication both of his salvation and his fruitfulness. Listen to what he said. He said, those who live according to the sinful nature have their mindset on what that natural desire for those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their mindset on what the Spirit desires. Here's what I'm saying. You can determine where you're going by what you're saying, and what you're saying comes from what you're thinking, and what you're thinking comes from what you've been practicing. See, the mindset of a sinful man is simple death. But the mind controlled by the Spirit is a life and peace. I often say this, and I ask this question: are we living or are we existing? The secular person think only about the desires of the carnal nature. And the carnal person may be spiritual, but he only wants things of the Spirit that satisfy or glorifies him. If we can ever get to the point where we understand heavenly mindset, there's going to be a shifting in your whole environment. What begins to take place is the things that used to look normal to you is now abnormal. The things where you used to be comfortable doing, it makes you uncomfortable now. The environment where you was okay and never had an issue, now because you are God-centered mindset, there are some things that you don't even want to be around. Got to understand something. Carnal-minded person, he may believe in God. He might even pray for things. But God is only a means to his desires. The Bible says in James 4:3, when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motive, that you may spend what you get on your own pleasures. But when there's a true Spirit-filled, born-again person, when they desire what the Spirit of God desires, he ultimately wants God's will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. Doesn't mean that we don't pray for our desire. It means we are consumed with our desires. Because you got to know that the desires of the redeemed should be and must become that of the Spirit of God. Paul says, the one who continually thinks on the desire of their sinful nature will bring the fruits of death and destruction. But the one who's consumed with the things of the Spirit will bring fruits of life and peace. I cannot stress this enough. The mind is so very important. Here's the question: what does your mind say about you? Your mind will tell you who you are. It will tell you whether you're a believer or unbeliever. See, a person led by the sinful nature or a person led by the Spirit, it will also tell you what type of fruit that you're going to produce. A person that thinks on the things of God receive life and peace. Cannot say that enough. Person that thinks on the things of God. So we have to begin to train ourselves to practice on the things of God so that we can receive life and peace. You know, it's kind of like when you go to school and there's so much, when you get in this environment, and I often tell people this right here, everybody is capable of learning, but it's what environment you put them in. Because whatever environment that you're put in is the environment that you're going to be influenced by. Paul in Colossians 3:1 is calling these believers who are tempted like all of us to think on carnal things, to set their heart and minds on things above. So here's what he's saying. Paul is saying, listen, we all are carnal in some form or fashion, but what separates us is our thinking. He said, since then, we have been raised with Christ. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to set your hearts on things above.